Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. In just 6 days, Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States and thus begin his second term as America's president. But Trump's comments and statements have already created an enormous amount of international apprehension. So today we ask, what could the second Trump presidency mean for the rest of the world? And indeed, in particular, what does it presage for India? Joining me to answer those questions is India's former ambassador to the United States and Israel and former High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Navtej Sarna. In 6 days' time, Mr. Sarna, Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States and thus begin his second term as America's president. Let me start this interview with a general question. What impact do you believe Trump will have on the rest of the world?
Well, thank you, Karan. I think Trump has already had an impact even before his inauguration. So ever since his election, particularly since it's a second term, people have been expecting a lot of things, in particular, a tremendous disruption on several fronts. And even before he started making recent statements about territorial expansion, I think there was an expectation that trade in particular would get disrupted. Things would become more transactional. Everybody would be brought to the table with much more to offer, and so on. But what has happened since then is that he has also made some statements which can only be called surreal. He's said that he would like to take Greenland, for instance, with the use of force if necessary. He'd like to take back the Panama Canal. He'd like to make Canada the 51st state of the United States and all that. Now, these are some statements which frankly question the very basis of international relations. How far he's going to go with them, that's a question we can discuss. But in broad terms, I think everybody is expecting a period of tremendous disruption, very strange deal making, and a concerted effort for what he thinks will make America great again. Because the important point I want to make right at the outset is, although the world has seen a Trump presidency, this is Trump unplugged. This is his second term. He's coming in with a clearer agenda. He's coming in with a clearer team. In the first presidency, he took months to really get his team together. There were many frequent changes. There may still be frequent changes, but at least to begin with, he knows the people he wants. He wants his loyalists who will push his agenda, and he's getting them in place.
I'll touch on many of the things you've raised in a moment's time, but let me first talk about two key appointments that he's made that, in a sense, you hinted at. Assuming he's confirmed, Marco Rubio will be the new Secretary of State, and Michael Waltz has already been announced as the new National Security Advisor. What do we know about these two people, and what do they suggest about the sort of foreign policy Trump will follow?
Well, I think, again, they are people who will at least for a long while, I think, carry out his agenda without conflict. Because I say that advisedly, because both of them are very strong on China. Strong, I mean that there are hawks on China, to put it in commonplace terms, and so is Trump at the moment. So they will take a very strong views on making sure that America does not become subservient to China in any sphere. So that's going to be the main brief that they are going to start with. The second aspect is that they are both well known to India and Indian foreign policy makers, as well as have a history of taking a positive stance at India-US relations. Why I say at least this will last for a long time is that in case at some stage Trump starts going soft on Xi, and he has made some remarks already, which say that, if he really gets a good deal, then he is willing to make it a G2 and two of them can sit down and solve all the problems. At which case, the paths with these loyalists may begin to differ, and we'll have to see how that progresses in the months and years to come.
Let me talk about a third person that's very close to Trump, Elon Musk. Is he some sort of Emenos Greece in this administration?
Well, at the moment, he is a disruptor-in-chief. Elon Musk has a great clout in the present administration so far because he's funded Trump to the tune of something like $270 million through his PAC. And that is his main hold, besides his wealth and besides the fact that he owns the platform X and uses it in different ways to influence policy. So at the moment, there is this bromance between Trump and Elon Musk. But we are beginning to see cracks already. At least there are attacks on Musk's proximity, particularly by Steve Bannon, formerly very close to Trump and now trying to make a comeback, who has called Elon Musk evil and said that he'll make sure he doesn't get a place of proximity in the new administration. He'll make sure of that before January 20th. We only have 6 days to go to see whether he can do it or not. But the other important aspect is that Elon Musk has been put in charge, along with Vivek Ramaswamy, of the DOGE, which is the department which is going to do a hatchet job on the systems in place in the United States, on the bureaucracy. And I think that is something which we'll have to see. We'll get resistance, and whether he'll be able to carry it on and for how long, and what stage he and Trump, because they are very strong personalities, very larger than life personalities, both wanting space in the White House. We'll have to see how far they can carry on as a team, or whether at some stage Trump says enough is enough.
Now, Elon Musk has allegedly held talks to try and remove British Prime Minister Keir Starmer from office. And he adds that Keir Starmer should be imprisoned for failing to prosecute British grooming gangs. He's called Keir Starmer utterly despicable. He's also waded into German politics and called Chancellor Scholz a fool. How do you view all of this, and is it happening at Trump's behest?
Well, he's gone even further with Germany. He supported this Alternative for Germany party just before the elections. And yes, he's made all those comments. I think at the moment he's probably been given a green light by Trump to do whatever he wants, as much disruption that he wants to cause. He can go ahead, because Trump loves to throw up the chessboard and see where the pieces fall and then begin to play. So at the moment he's there in the process of throwing up the chessboard. But what it is already doing, and there are other things happening along the same line, what's already doing is that the transatlantic relationship, the basis of which has been a kind of mutual respect and mutual trust, is now under question. And there is going to be a pushback. It's going to be a weak pushback, because Europe at the moment and the United Kingdom are weak in many ways. And therefore they are going to be pushing back and saying this is not done, this is not done. But Musk will carry on this way unless he is stopped. The next target may be France. So at the moment, probably my guess would be that Trump is, not stopping him. At some stage, once all the confirmations are done, there may be a bigger pushback.
Let's focus for a moment on some of the things that Trump has publicly said, sometimes repeatedly, that he will do. He's talked of imposing a 20% tariff on all imports and far higher tariffs on Chinese exports. He's also threatened Canada and Mexico with 25% tariffs, and many people believe that he could move to act on these pretty soon. Could we end up perilously close to some sort of trade war?
Well, trade wars are coming. So, whether he actually imposes tariffs to the extent that he has said, or uses these initial figures and levels as an opening gambit to make, people are guessing that he's going to say, 6 months on, I'm going to put 60% tariffs. And that gives enough time for China to come back and see how they're going to react, whether they're going to make some concessions and so on, and similarly with other countries. So I think he will use tariffs as a weapon. He may use them as the levels as a high negotiating opening gambit, and therefore see whether he needs to make exceptions, whether he needs to make exclusions. Now, this is exactly what was done with a slightly less dramatic impact in his first term. Some countries put retaliatory tariffs. Some countries negotiated and sought exclusions. So this is going to happen. His trade, he's basically a mercantilist mindset. He hates a negative trade balance. So he is going to look at every country, and Canada being one of them has 8 billion trade balance in their favor, who has a positive trade balance against the United States, and he is going to target them. So he will make them buy more from the United States. He will make them export less to the United States to settle that. And tariffs will be a weapon which he will definitely want to use. It remains to be seen to what extent and against whom.
In this context, Mr. Sarna, let's focus for a moment on China. He's invited the Chinese president to his inauguration, although I believe Mr. Xi Jinping won't be attending personally. He's sending a senior representative instead. What sort of relationship do you believe Trump is likely to pursue with China and Xi Jinping? And more importantly, could that relationship have worrying or at least serious implications for India?
But for the foreseeable future, I think he is going to carry on a whole-scale confrontational relationship with China, as is Xi going to do it with him. Both of them are men which are similar in some ways. They don't bear dissent. They don't care about international rules, regulations, and order. And they are both determined to become superior to the other. Now, you cannot make MAGA happen if China continues to rise. Similarly, for China to really grow, they have to make dents in United States superiority. So you're going to see a period of disruption. You're going to see problems regarding access to technology for China. You're going to see China, on the other hand, becoming more and more strict in terms of export of rare earths and rare earth extraction technology, just to give one example. And I think for the foreseeable future, India does not need to worry about a great softening. But as I said earlier, there is always the possibility of the United States, particularly Donald Trump, wanting to be the best deal maker ever, strike some sort of a deal with China which begins to soften China. And the invitation is one such indication. And his statement that we too could, solve the problems of the world. Now, if that begins to happen, then the convergence that India and the United States have, that they both have a problem with China, that convergence begins to weaken. And naturally, that plays into our relationship, not wholly, but in some part.
Let's at this point come to the two big foreign policy challenges that he faces. First of all, he's boasted that he can end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours flat. How much of that is just childish rhetoric, and how much of that is actual intention? And either way, is this bad news for President Zelensky?
Well, I think he is serious about wanting to end the wars. And he is serious because he's made such a big thing about it, and it's been one of the main planks of his campaign. And he really doesn't have the stomach, I would say, broadly speaking, of wanting to see American boys or American aid continuing to go towards wars abroad. At the same time, he's going to find it very difficult to abandon Ukraine completely, because that's going to be his Afghanistan, so to speak, if he abandons Ukraine completely. So the only way he can end the war is if he comes to a compromise with Putin, and if Putin agrees, at which point I think Zelensky would have been hit, because they can come to no other conclusion except by concession of territory. Now, what Trump has said, and his people have said, that he intends to meet Putin very early in his term. So I think that will probably be the first time that we will get a real indication of what he plans to do. At the moment, I don't see any great strategic plan, any opening negotiations, and the Europeans, of course, are totally committed towards Ukraine. They each have differences to the extent, but broadly speaking, yes. So his abandonment of Ukraine will also further damage his relationship with Europe. So I think while he wants to end the war, it's easier said than done.
Something else that will damage his relationship with Europe, in addition to his treatment and attitude to the Ukraine war, will be his treatment and attitude of NATO. Once again, he's threatening either to ensure that European countries who are members of NATO pay a lot more for their membership, their subscription must go up fairly substantially, or he's even at times talking about leaving NATO. That again will be a second source of tension with Europe.
Yes, of course it is, because this was the problem in the first term, when he said that everybody has to pay up to 2%. 23 countries actually pay 2%. Now he wants to make it 5%. So this is going to be a major problem in his relations with NATO. They are not going to be easy relations with NATO. And let's not forget, he's already having a problem within NATO. Forget NATO versus Russia. He's having a problem within NATO on the Greenland issue. And if this is going to be the track of their interaction with Europe, I think NATO is going to have a lot of problems with President Trump. He may not abandon NATO, because he also doesn't want to take on security alone. So I think all he wants is that more people pick up more burden in NATO and don't continue to take a free ride on the United States.
Now, the other major international challenge that he faces is the Israel-Gaza conflict. Trump is a great supporter of Israel. He's in particular a great supporter of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. During his first presidency, he moved the US Embassy to Jerusalem. He recognized Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights. Now, this time round, will all hell break loose if the hostages aren't released, which is what he's predicted?
Well, I don't know in what way more hell can break loose in that region, but certainly I think Trump has made it clear. And we have to see it distinctly different from trying to get a lasting peace in the Middle East. This is something, again, that I said wars will stop on 20th January, and I want Netanyahu to do. So he's given him a free hand for the last 20 days. Do what you will, but I want the war to stop on the 20th January. That's one view that's being put out. What we hear now is that the negotiations in Doha have possibly had a breakthrough and a ceasefire, which would also mean a release of at least 33 hostages in the first go. May be on the card soon. And if he gets that, that's victory for Trump even before he's inaugurated. And Biden says it's his plan, it's his negotiation. So the negotiators now actually have Trump's advisor present so that he will take forward these post 20th January. They might get a ceasefire and they might get a release of certain hostages and some Palestinian prisoners from Israel, because Israel doesn't want to now start with a terrible copybook with Trump immediately at the beginning. But that, let us not mistake that for peace. Let us not mistake that for any great sympathy that Trump might have for the Palestinian cause. I don't, as you pointed out, the actions that were taken in the last term, and which Biden, by the way, did not revert. And Biden would challenge your statement that Trump is a great supporter of Netanyahu. He would say, I'm a greater supporter of Israel. So he has not reversed any of that. And those moves were actually not at all sympathetic to the Palestinian cause.
Now, there is a third international issue, and you mentioned it at the beginning of this interview. The question is, how serious is Trump about it? He's said publicly that he either wants to buy Greenland or perhaps take it militarily by force. He's talked of taking back the Panama Canal. Most bizarrely of all, he's talked about absorbing or annexing Canada and making it the 51st state of the United States. Does he really mean all of this? Or is he, how should I put it, simply ventilating his imagination?
Well, I think it's not without a purpose that he's making these statements. These are not something which he got up in the morning and suddenly let off. I think there is some amount of thinking behind this. Canada is the easiest to understand. He wants them to cut down the trade balance, finish it, which I mentioned earlier. It's about $8.2 billion. He wants them to tighten border controls and drug control so that illegal immigrants are not coming through from Canada. And he wants them to raise, again, defense spending, of which they are doing only 1.4% of the GDP. Now, the increase with Trudeau gone, the new man is in all likelihood going to increase the defense spending and tighten the border controls. Now, the trade balance may take time to set off. So I think that stuff about 51st state and all that, is probably something to scare Canada and to put them on the back foot. And not that anybody believes that he's actually going to take over Canada. Similarly, on the Panama Canal, he said, China's running it, we built it, we had it, etc., etc. So, what that could lead to is possibly a certain change of stance with the Hong Kong-based company, which controls part of the access to the canal, and get a greater concession for American ships going through it. Greenland is a little more complicated, and I'm not sure whether it is the sheer size of Greenland which attracts Trump. He likes things big, or whether it is a full understanding of the strategic importance of Greenland. Of course, I think he would definitely be more interested, not so much in the strategic happenings in the Arctic or the opening of the North Sea route or the climate impact, etc. He's more interested in the huge amounts of oil and gas that Greenland has, the huge amounts of critical minerals and rare earths that Greenland has. Now, this opening shot that we want to take it over even by force, obviously he's not going to send American army to take over Greenland, but this might result in greater military presence of the United States on Greenland. They already have a base. They might be in greater presence there. It might result in greater access, because everybody's trying to get to those minerals. China's trying to get to them, Russia's trying to get to them, and Europe is trying to get to them. So he might just be thinking that, that may be the limit. So I don't think there's going to be a physical takeover, but a greater access in different ways is definitely what he would be targeting.
Before we end, Mr. Sarna, let's focus on India. Modi and Trump established a close personal relationship during his first presidency. But Trump, as you know, can be unpredictable. Some people say he can also be temperamental. What sort of relationship do you expect the two to have this time around?
Well, I think they have a reasonably good relationship. Sort of, we worked well together with Trump during the first term, particularly on strategic and defense issues. I think the problem is going to come, and this is going to go beyond personalities, frankly, because I think the two issues are going to be trade, and even before trade, it's going to be immigration. And I think that if Trump carries out the things he said, will impact our relationship. We will have to work very hard to make sure that it does not upset the rest of the relationship, either in working terms or in perception terms. And we will have to continue to project a closer strategic convergence and work on those issues. Because immigration is the thing he's come on. And unfortunately, the level of illegal immigrants from India in the United States is very large. One estimate talks about 7.25 lakhs of illegal immigrants, many of whom are useful to the American economy. And it's going to not be that they can suddenly pick them all up and chuck them back, because there are processes and judicial processes will have to be followed. Besides, they don't have the bureaucratic heft to suddenly pick up every illegal immigrant and throw. But there are at least, again, another report suggests 18,000 people, illegal immigrants, who have finished all the judicial recourse and are just waiting to be deported. Now, if that becomes one of the first things that Mr. Trump does towards India, well, in perception terms, it doesn't look too good. But I would say that we'd have to right the roughs. We'll have to make sure that we keep our eye on the strategic ball, and we will have to, bend with it. And we'll have to respond appropriately when it comes to trade. But you would like to ask something.
I was going to say, let's focus for a moment on trade and not immigration, but visas. You were ambassador in Trump's first presidency for 2 years, right from, I think, January 2017 till December 2018. He often has accused India of high tariffs. The Harley-Davidson is the great example he cites. Will Indian tariffs once again be in his sights?
Well, it's certainly. As I said, although we had a great relationship, the Prime Minister and Trump had a great relationship. There were huge rallies and all that. But the trade issue didn't go away, because he does get the trade bee in his bonnet. And the Harley-Davidson, frankly, was a non-issue. But once it got into his head, it was difficult to get it out, because there were only a few bikes of the level which were attracting 100% tariff. And finally, any case, Harley-Davidson has now moved operations away from India. So there will be other issues. India is known, in his view, as tariff king. And tariffs, as he himself says, is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. So he's going to come and accuse us of tariff abuse. Indian tariffs are higher than many countries, particularly in the ASEAN. Trade balance is in our favor, which is another thing which will gall him. So I think in the previous term, for instance, we started buying more oil and natural gas, liquefied natural gas from the United States to offset the trade balance. And that helped. We began to project how many jobs Indian tech companies and other Indian companies are actually creating in the United States. For instance, there's again an estimate which says 600,000 jobs are created by Indian tech firms in America for Americans. So, we'll have to be smart about it. We will have to project back things which show that we are not just taking advantage of America, but we are actually contributing to America, and the relationship is good for America. I think this is the language that Mr. Trump likes to hear. He understands, and I think this appeals to his transactional soul.
Now, the other potential sticking point is what's called the H-1B visa. During his first presidency, Trump called it very bad and unfair. But this time, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Sriram Krishnan have come out in strong support of H-1B visas. Musk has even gone on record to say he could go to war over the issue. So when it comes to H-1B visas, will Trump 2 be substantially different to Trump 1?
Well, I think that issue is still open because now the Trump's people are beginning to fight between themselves, among themselves on H-1B. Musk, of course, having come to the United States on H-1B visa and also using a lot of H-1B visas in SpaceX and Tesla, etc., is in favor of this. But Steve Bannon has again come out very strongly against the H-1B visa. And Trump is sort of, going with Musk at the moment on this. Let us see how much it goes. We must remember that H-1B visa in Trump's first term, what happened was the tightened scrutiny and the rate of denials went up. So the rate of denials in 2018 was about 25% of the applications. In Biden's time, it came down to 2%. So I think what you can certainly expect is a tighter scrutiny, a high rate of denials, and ultimately somewhere a balance will work. But I do want to say, Karan, that, we have to stop worrying about H-1B visa. H-1B visa, if people are going there, it's essentially going to help firms, Indian and American. Actually, it's the American firms who really gain from H-1B visa, not the Indian tech firms so much. The Indian tech firms have already factored this threat in. And the big Indian tech companies are already using more and more people based in America so that they don't have to run into this visa problem. So ultimately, we have to let the people who benefit from H-1B visa fight it out. The big American big tech, they will lobby for H-1B visa. They will lobby for Indian engineers and experts. We should not waste too much political capital in taking up the H-1B visa, if there is a change.
Let me raise two more issues with you on what I call the India-US front. One sore point in the relationship was the Pannun murder for hire and the Adani cases. Will Trump pursue them with the same level of seriousness that we've seen the Biden administration pursue them? Or is there some possibility that he might put it on the back burner and go slow?
Well, I don't think you should look at President Trump to be looking at each of these cases to begin with. And if we keep on raising these issues in the media, we tend to deflect from the heart of the relationship. I think these issues are already in some sort of engagement. They are also in some sort of regulatory and judicial boxes at the moment. And I frankly think that, Trump is going to have much more to do in the months to come than simply pick up these two issues. And as far as Indian government has already made its stand clear on these issues. And I think the Indian foreign policy makers certainly will want to make sure that these issues, again, these very little tails of, the dog don't actually begin to wag it. We have to actually look at the heart of the relationship.
The final issue is Quad. Trump took it very seriously during his first presidency. Now that it's been elevated to head of state level, do you believe that Trump's interest will grow? Or is there a possibility that because Biden has made it something that Biden was very keen on, Trump might move away? And secondly, if Trump's interest remains, can we see him coming to India for the Quad summit this year?
Anybody's guess, Karan, but certainly I think protocol and the Quad relationship would require that he come this year because it has been brought up to head of state/government level, and it was essentially revived under Trump, as was the fact that Asia Pacific became Indo-Pacific happened under Trump. So it is part of a set in Trump's thinking of building up alliances, partnerships against China. So I think unless there is a dramatic improvement with relations with China, which is an outside chance, I think the importance of Quad will continue because he would also begin to want to deal more with countries like Australia and Japan. Japan is now in a stronger position than the rest of Europe, for instance. So, he stuff has happened, AUKUS has happened, Indo-Pacific has happened. All this is something which Trump would broadly like to support because it is a way, in his way of thinking, we may not say that, it's a way of containing China.
Finally, let me end by quoting what you said at the beginning of this interview. You said, people are expecting tremendous disruption on several fronts. You said that this disruption could question the very basis of international relations, and you summed it all up by referring to him as Trump unplugged. Will we see considerably greater destabilization internationally than we're used to?
I think we will, and we should be prepared for it. Europe should be prepared for it. China should be prepared for it. I think, let's not forget, Trump is the commander-in-chief of the strongest country in the world. And at the moment, he's got the trifecta. He has the Congress with him, he has the Senate with him, and he has a strong team with him. Where that begins to face roadblocks, you and I will have to watch.
Mr. Sarna, thank you very much for the time you've given me and for your perceptive analysis of the way in which Trump could end up disrupting the world we've got used to. Take care.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Great pleasure.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.